This message came in the form of a letter. Solomon said, "Deliver this letter to the Queen of Sheba without delay." The hudhoop spread its wings and soared through the skies, reaching the grand palace of Sheba. It placed the letter before the Queen of Sheba and vanished. The Queen of Sheba looked at the letter in astonishment, then read it aloud. "In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful." She was startled and said, "This is no ordinary message. It is from a great prophet and king." Then she summoned her ministers and advisors to consult with them. With arrogance, the advisors said, "We are powerful. We should go to war." But the Queen of Sheba was wise and understanding. She said, "You do not understand. His messenger was a bird. His power is beyond human limits." So she decided to send precious gifts to Solomon, gold, silver, and jewels. When these gifts arrived, Solomon became angry and said, "Do you think you can buy me with wealth? Go back and tell your queen to submit to Allah." Hearing this firm and truthful warning, the Queen of Sheba's heart changed. She recognized the truth and humbly began her journey to meet Solomon in search of truth at the court of a prophet. The air was filled with silence, and the scorching rays of the sun danced upon the desert sands. The Queen of Sheba, along with her caravan, had begun her journey in response to the message of King Solomon. Meanwhile, King Solomon was seated in his magnificent palace hall, a palace whose walls were made of crystal clear glass and whose floor shimmered like water. At that very moment, King Solomon proclaimed in his assembly, "Who among you can bring me the throne of the Queen of Sheba before they come to me in submission?" Silence overtook the gathering. Then a mighty jinn stood up and said, "I will bring it to you before you rise from your seat." But then someone spoke, someone who had been granted knowledge of the book. He said, "I will bring it to you before your glance returns to you." King Solomon blinked, and there it was. It was a moment when a prophet bowed his head and said, "This is from the grace of my Lord, to test me whether I give thanks or remain ungrateful." And at last, the caravan of Queen Sheba entered the city of King Solomon. The air was fragrant. The towering palace walls sparkled in the sunlight. A floor of pure, transparent glass, like a reflection of paradise on earth. King Solomon himself welcomed Queen Sheba. Dignity, grace, and gentleness, the essence of a prophet's kingdom. He showed her around the palace, the walls, waterfalls, and pillars. And then brought her before a throne. King Solomon said, "Do you recognize this throne?" Queen Sheba looked closely, her eyes filled with both wonder and doubt. And then she quietly said, "It is my throne." But she knew it wasn't just a throne. It was a miracle of knowledge, power, and wisdom. Her heart prostrated, not with words, but in silent surrender. She accepted that the Lord of King Solomon was the one true Lord. And that day, when a queen gave her heart to a prophet, King Solomon married Queen Sheba. And so, knowledge, wisdom, and kingdom became united in a divine bond. Time kept moving forward. One day, King Solomon stood leaning on his staff. The jinn were still working tirelessly under his command. Unaware that he was no longer alive. But behold the wisdom of the Almighty. A mere termite, by the will of Allah, gnawed through King Solomon's staff from within, and finally he fell to the ground. Only then did the jinn realize that the one they had toiled for all this time had passed away long ago. This event was not just a lesson for the jinn, but a great sign for all of humanity. And thus Allah showed that the knowledge of the unseen belongs only to Him. After the death of King Solomon, his reign became a chapter in history. Yet his prayers, his wisdom, and his humility became a timeless legacy. In the end, every kingdom must fade, but those who live for the pleasure of their Lord, their honor remains forever.